Many of our people do not realize how firmly the foundation of our faith has been laid. Light was given that helped us to understand the Scriptures in regard to Christ, His mission, and His priesthood. A line of truth extending from 1844 to the time when we shall enter the city of God was made plain.
The message that I have this evening is entitled, A Solid, Immovable Platform. In Spiritual Gifts 168, Ellen White says, I was shown three steps. 1, 2, and 3, the first, second, and third angels' messages. So she saw in vision 3 steps. The first, the second, and third angel's message. And then it goes on and she says, said the angel that was with her, woe to him who shall move a block or stir a pin in these messages. Now, have there been, since that time, since the time this movement started, have there been men that have raised up, that have tried to move a block or stir a pin in these messages?
Yes, there has.
Absolutely there is. And today we see that clearly in the churches today, that many are seeking to destroy the 3 angels' message. And I believe that God is raising up a people that will restore the true understanding of these messages. They are 3 steps. The first, the second, and the third. Going on, it says, the true understanding of these messages is of what? Vital importance. Now, if there's a true understanding, would there be a false understanding?
Definitely.
Would there be let's say, a group of people that say, hey, we have the 3 angels' messages. We're preaching the 3 angels' messages. Maybe perhaps there's a network that sends airwaves. That says we're... I didn't say it, you said it. That is sending the 3 angels' messages to every nation, all around the world. Is there a true and a false understanding?
Yes, there's.
We need to know what the true understanding. It says right there, the true understanding is of vital importance. And I want to submit to you that there is a very general, how do I say it? What is the proper word?
Surface understanding.
Superficial.
Yeah.
A superficial understanding of the 3 angels' messages that is very, very prevalent in the churches. In fact, some of the things that I'm going to share, the history, like I was never taught that. I had to go and actively go and study and read it for myself. The history of the Advent movement and the Advent people, and the history of the 3 angels' messages, which I'm going to be sharing this weekend. The destiny of souls hangs upon the manner in which they are received. I was brought down through these messages and saw how dearly the people of God had purchased their experience. It had been obtained through much suffering and severe conflict. Step by step, God had brought them along until He placed them upon a what? A solid, immovable platform. A solid, immovable platform. And there's men and women and leaders, pastors, teachers, presidents today that will say, no, the platform really wasn't that solid. I was brought again down through these messages. I saw how dearly the people of God had purchased their experience. So this, the history of the Advent people and the history of the Advent movement is important history for us to understand. And as we understand it, as we accept it, we stand on that solid, immovable platform. Now, the 3 angels' messages are 3 historical steps that end up on a solid, immovable platform. Now, I had no idea when I first heard the 3 angels' messages, I had no idea that they had a historical context. That they had they had a historical fulfillment. Now, I want to ask you a question. Can you discard any one of these 3 steps and still be on a solid platform?
No.
No, it's because those 3 steps lead you to the solid, immovable platform. Can you be a true Seventh-day Adventist while rejecting any of these steps?
No.
Can you be among the people that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus and reject the other two messages? Did you reject any of these three messages? No, absolutely not. And so it's of vital importance that we understand their true meaning. So here's a true understanding. There is a historical fulfillment of these messages. In 1833, I would actually say change that to 1840. From 1840 to 1843, you have the giving of the first angel's message that was historically fulfilled. In the summer of 1844, you have the second angel's message. After October 22nd, 1844, you have the third angel's message. Now, this may be review for a lot of people here this evening, but I know there are still a lot of people that would call themselves an Adventist or Seventh-day Adventist that have no idea that there is a historical fulfillment. And I'm going to show you why that is important to know and understand that they have a historical fulfillment. So just because they have a historical fulfillment does not negate the fact that there is I would say, universal fulfillment. I didn't know how else to phrase it. But basically what I mean is that we are living today in the third angel's message, but the other two angels' messages still apply.
Right.
There is a historical fulfillment, but that doesn't mean that they are not relevant for today. They're absolutely relevant today, but we must understand the historical context. While I was praying, now the first vision given to Ellen White in December of 1844, she says, while I was praying at the family altar, the Holy Ghost fell upon me, and I seemed to be rising higher and higher, far above the dark world. I turned to look for the Advent people in the world, but could not find them. When a voice said to me, look again, and look a little higher. At this I raised my eyes and saw a straight and narrow path, cast up high above the world. So was this path, this narrow path, was it amongst the world? Where was it?
Above.
Above. She was looking and she was told, look higher. So the Advent people are they separate from the world?
Yes.
Supposed to be separate from the world, right? Supposed to have a higher path, a higher calling, a higher standard than the world. But is that what we see today? I don't believe so. Many people today, they don't want to live any higher than the world. But this vision, right off the bat, right off the very first vision of Ellen White, establishes that the path that God has for his people is a different path than what the world has. And there is a distinction, there is a separation from the world. But many people in the church, and not just, I would say, the Adventist church, but many of the churches throughout Christianity are bringing the church to a worldly standard. You see so much of the world within the church and within the families today. That many people will love the world instead of the truth. Now, it goes on to say, on this path, the Advent people were traveling to the city, which was at the farther end of the path. So the path was above the world. And those people that were on the path were the Advent people, those that had gone through that experience. At the very end of that path led to what? Led to the city, right? The holy city, the New Jerusalem. That's the end of the path. That's our end goal. That's our end goal. We want to make it to the heavenly city. We want to make it to the New Jerusalem, right? Amen?
Amen.
Right. I want to be there, and I want to see you there as well. So that is the very end of the path, is the heavenly Jerusalem, the city. They had a bright light set up behind them at the beginning of the path, which an angel told me was what? The midnight cry. So you have this path, the city is on one end, and behind them at the very beginning of the path, there is the midnight cry. The midnight cry. Now that's important to understand. What is she talking about? What is she referencing? And why is that important? The midnight cry. So the bright light was the midnight cry. Now, some Adventist ministers, I hear this from many different people, but people outside of the faith, they say that your belief system, your church was founded on a mistake.
Mhm.
Have you ever heard that before? It was founded on a mistake. You guys made the great disappointment. That was a mistake. And I find that actually coming in, and even Adventists are saying that, Adventist pastors, saying, well, it was a mistake. Or you're founded on error. Founded on error. Many people, many ministers, I don't know about you, but I had never heard, or I haven't heard very many messages about the history of the Advent people, concerning the history and the historical fulfillment of the three angels' messages. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Now, why do I bring that up? Because it says that put darkness for light and light for darkness. What was it that was on the end of the path? The midnight cry. There was at the very beginning of the path was the midnight cry. And that was the light that would light the whole pathway. But we need to understand the midnight cry, what the midnight cry is. Because many in the church today, many leaders are actually denying that light. They would have us, many would have us turn our backs. Ministers today would have us turn our backs to the city and head back to the world. Head back to Babylon. But the midnight cry, what is the midnight cry? It says, on this path, the Advent people were traveling the city, which was at the farther end of the path. They had a bright light set up behind them at the beginning of the path, which an angel told me was the midnight cry. Now this light shone all along the path. Are you with me?
Yes.
And gave light for their feet so that they might not stumble.
Interesting.
That's significant. That is very, very important. Because you see the whole movement, or the whole a movement of God's people from 1844 all the way until the city of God. That's heaven. That's the New Jerusalem. That's the second coming. And the midnight cry that happened historically was to light the whole path. The whole path. All the way to the city. So why? So their feet will not stumble. So let's say we have forgotten that history. We've forgotten about what the midnight cry even means.
Or don't know it.
Or don't know it. Do you think we might stumble?
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And at midnight, what is the midnight cry? And at midnight, there was a cry made, behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. Now, what is the context here? Matthew 25.
The 10 virgins.
The 10 virgins. Yeah, the 10 virgins. What is the message? Basically, wake out of sleep and go meet him. There was a call to go out. There was a call to go out. Now watch this. Therefore, let's get a little bit of a historical context when this was fulfilled. Therefore, Christians who fell asleep before the doors opened in the most holy place, when the midnight cry was finished, at the 7th month, 1844. So when was the midnight cry finished?
7th month.
7th month.
44.
Right, now this is in Jewish reckoning. The 10th day of the 7th month, which would be
October 22nd.
October 22nd, 1844. Not July of 1844, but the 7th month. She's speaking of October 22nd, 1844. So the midnight cry was finished, was done in October, by October 22nd, 1844. Near the close, now watch this, near the close of what? The second angel's message. I saw a great light from heaven upon the people of God. The rays of this light seemed bright as the sun, and I heard the voice of the angels, behold, the bridegroom cometh, go you out to meet him. This was the midnight cry, which was to give power to the second angel's message. So the second angel's message is connected with the midnight cry, and the midnight cry was to illuminate the whole pathway. I don't know if you're connecting the dots now.
Yes.
What is the second angel's message?
Babylon.
Babylon is fallen, is fallen. So if I'm all the way down on this end of the path, nearer to the city, is Babylon still fallen?
Yes.
Babylon is still fallen. And if Babylon is still fallen, then why are we going back to Babylon?
Right.
Because some people have denied the midnight cry. They've denied that history. The light isn't shining along their pathway. That is the light of the second angel's message in combination with the midnight cry that lights the path of God's people all the way to the very end. Basically, God is telling us that Babylon was fallen back then, and Babylon is still fallen. Don't go back to her. We need to come out. We need to come fully out. The midnight cry and the second angel's message goes together. What is the second angel's message? There followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Early Writings 2:32. As the churches refused to receive the first angel's message, they did what?
Reject.
They rejected the first angel's message. They rejected the light from heaven and fell from the favor of God. So, did you know that 2 comes after 1? Did you know that? That's pretty profound, right? Actually, it's pretty simple, profoundly simple, that the second message would come after the first message. So the second message is in response to the first message. So there were people that rejected the first message, and because they rejected the first message, the second message applied. Now, who was it that rejected the first? The churches. The Protestant churches. They rejected the first angel's message, and so the second angel's message applied to them. So, do you understand that if you reject the first angel's message, that the second angel's message is going to apply to you, or your church, or your denomination? They trusted to their own strength, and by opposing the first message, placed themselves where they could not see the light of the second angel's message. They rejected because they couldn't see the light of the first. They rejected the first, and then they couldn't see the light of the second. They didn't know what they were doing in rejecting. They didn't understand what they were rejecting, but they rejected the first one.
Right.
And they didn't realize that they were fallen. So they were fallen, but they didn't realize it. But the beloved of God, who were oppressed, accepted the message. Babylon is fallen, and did what? Left the churches. When the churches spurned the counsel of God by rejecting the Advent message, the Lord did what? The Lord rejected them. The Lord rejected them. The first angel was followed by a second proclamation. Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations shake of the wine of their wrath of her fornication. So we're told in 4th volume of the Spirit of Prophecy, 231, that the Lord rejected them. Who's them?
Church.
Those are the fallen Protestant churches. The Lord, she says, the Lord rejected them. No, not the individuals, but the organizations themselves, definitely. The Lord has rejected them. And I marvel because I used to, and I grew up in one of those fallen churches.
Wow.
I didn't know that the Lord had rejected them because I didn't know any better. But once I learned the truth, once I learned the 3 angels' messages, I came out. And I came and I joined a people that I had believed, had accepted these 3 messages, and had remembered that the Lord had rejected them. But I think today people forget. People forget. They don't know the history. They don't know the history of the midnight cry, of the second angel's message, the rejecting of those fallen systems. Once again, not the people, but the systems. Now, why did they withdraw from those churches? Why did they withdraw? Because they rejected the light, so God had to bring them out. Now, tomorrow, I'm actually going to be talking about, I did this presentation in Australia called A City in a Tower. And it answers the message, and it just kind of like a flood of light entered in my mind. But it answers the question, like, why did God call them out of Babylon? Why is it? Is it because of false doctrine? Is it because they were drinking the wine of Babylon? Is it because of the worldly influence? I think it's all those things, but there's one aspect of the reason why God called his people out of those fallen churches so he could do something through them. So people could not follow the light in those churches, so they had to come out in order to follow the light, including Ellen White and her family. They were kicked out of the Methodist Church. Now, this message, Fourth Volume of the Spirit of Prophecy, 231, this message was understood by Adventists to be an announcement of the what? The moral fall. There was a moral fall of the churches in consequence of the rejection of the first message. The proclamation Babylon has fallen was given in the summer of 1844. And as a result, about how many? 50,000 people withdrew from those churches. So in the summer of 1844, about 50,000 people came out of the Protestant churches. Why? Because they had rejected the first angel's message. They had rejected the message of Jesus is coming again. Jesus is coming, get ready. They didn't like that. They were comfortable with their lifestyle. They were comfortable with their life in the world. And they did not want Jesus to come back. So they rejected that light. It was to separate the Church of Christ from the corrupting influences of the world that the first angel's message was given. But with the multitude, even of professed Christians, the ties which bound them to earth were stronger than the attractions heavenward. They chose to listen to the voice of worldly wisdom and turned away from the heart-searching message of truth. They didn't want Jesus to come. They didn't want Jesus to come. They wanted their life. They were too comfortable with their life on the earth. And unfortunately, I don't think things have changed very much today. Very much today. And they want to be saved, but don't want to surrender. Want to be saved, but don't want to surrender. I think of a friend of mine who in high school, we were talking about this, and I wasn't really that spiritual of a person in high school. And I remember talking to him about it, and he said one thing, and it always stuck with me. He said, well, I have my fire insurance. Basically, I have my fire insurance. I've accepted Jesus Christ. Like because of that, I'm not going to go to hell. It was simply what it was. Christianity was simply, Jesus Christ was simply fire insurance for him. But he wanted to live a worldly lifestyle. And this is what you see today. And God is calling a people, raising up a people that will take the messages seriously. And will say, you know what? I don't want any of this world. I don't want this world. I want to go to heaven. I want to go to heaven. So this is what they faced back then. And times haven't changed. If anything, it's gotten worse. So they turned away from the heart's searching message of truth. The second angel's message brought the Adventist from what?
The creed-bound.
Creed-bound. Creed-bound churches, where they could be reached by the gifts and united and prepared for the coming of the Lord. The gifts of what? The gifts of the Spirit, right? They had a bright light set up behind them at the beginning of the path, which the angel told me was the midnight cry. Now, those churches had a moral fall in the summer of 1844, even before that. Now, that represents apostate Protestantism. Now, if Adventism joins hand with the fallen churches or worships in the same styles as the fallen, same worship styles, do you know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. The same worship styles? Mm-hmm. I always found it to be somewhat interesting. I came out of an evangelical church, mega church, really. A mega church, thousands of people that come, and so many people, if you want to, and many people do, you come in late, sit in the back, as soon as the message is over, go ahead and leave, never talk to anybody, and you feel good about yourself, and you deceive yourself into thinking that you're going to be saved. Because you do that, because you come into a building once a week. And this is so prevalent. But anyways, the worship styles. In the churches that I grew up in, it is a full-on entertainment show. concert, and I was surprised, blown away, flabbergasted, whatever you want to say, when I came into an Adventist church and they were doing the same thing. And talking about bringing drums, bringing rock and roll music in, bringing a jazz band in one of the universities, a jazz band. I don't know. I thought I had left that, but I don't know. When we worship the same, in the same style, what about the same God as Babylon? I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that. To say that we have the same God as these fallen churches, I don't know about you, but that bothers me. I don't know how that can be. I don't know how that can be. We were called out of that. The midnight cry. So here's the sequence. The first angel's message, the second angel's message, and towards the end of the second angel's message, in the summer of 1844, the midnight cry came, come out. So Babylon has fallen, come out, and then you have the third angel's message after that. So the moral fall was a rejection of the first angel's message. Now, what is the first angel's message? Fear God, give glory to Him, for the hour of His judgment is come, and worship Him that made the heaven, the earth, the sea, and the fountains of water. There followed another angel saying, Babylon has fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. The third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God. So here you have the three angels' message. And in the first angel's message, it was given with a loud voice. Right? It was given with a loud voice. The third angel's message was given with a loud voice. But what about the loud voice of the second angel? In Revelation chapter 14, verse 8, the second angel's message was not given with a loud voice. So we saw that in 1844, the second angel's message was, summer of 1844, was first given. And the midnight cry came, but it wasn't given with a loud voice. That's what it says right there. There's no loud voice in the second angel's message, but there is in the first and the third. Well, why is that? Because it has to be given again. It's going to be given again. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. So you see, it's almost the exact same language. Babylon is fallen. So the message has to be given again. In fact, I see Revelation 18, 1 through 4, as a repeat of the first, second, and third angel's message. The message of the fall of Babylon as given by the second angel is repeated, Early Writings 277, with the additional mention of the corruptions which have been entering the churches since 1844. And I heard another voice from heaven, saying, come out of her, my people. The midnight cry came at the end of the second angel's message. Now this is what I want to kind of point out this evening. You see the second angel's message is Babylon is fallen. That was given in the summer of 1844. Connected with that message is the midnight cry, or go you out, or come out. There's a message to come out. So in connection with Babylon is fallen, there's a message to come out. And that's the same thing we see in Revelation 18. That will be repeated. You have Revelation 18:2, which says Babylon is fallen. Then you have Revelation 18:4, which says, come out of her, my people. Do you see the parallel there?
Yes.
You see the parallel. So that history and this is why I believe it's so important, because that history, I believe, is going to be repeated, and is being repeated at the very moment. Repeated the second angel's message along with another voice to call or come out. Why? As the churches refused to receive the first angel's message, they rejected the light from heaven and fell from the favor of God. They trusted to their own strength, and by opposing the first message, placed themselves where they could not see the light of the second angel's message. But the beloved of God who were oppressed accepted the message, Babylon is fallen, and came out. With all of that said, how important is it to understand the historical context of the three angels' messages and understand how it applies to what is happening today in the church, outside of the church? I would say it's very, very important. It represents 3 steps And if we want to be on that solid, immovable platform, we better know and understand the true understanding and not the false. Just a brief overview of a solid, immovable platform. That's the three angels' message. The three angels' message led us as a people to be placed on this solid, immovable platform. And I see a need more and more and more for people to stand up and preach these messages with power, far greater power than I can do, but that God is calling us to point people back to the true understanding and how it applies to our life. Because in reality, what I see happening today is that the churches of today, including the Adventist church, is repeating what the churches did back then. That they loved the world more than they loved the second coming of Christ. More than they loved the truth. And I pray that that is none of us here this evening. That each and every one of us will search our own hearts and ask God, is there anything? Is there anything in my life? Is there any aspect in any room in my heart where I love the world more than I love you? Thank you for watching this video from Line of Truth Ministries. You can help get this timely and important video out by liking, sharing, and subscribing to our YouTube channel. Also, don't forget to check out our website, lineoftruth.org.